The Southeastern Conference is home to some of the best rivalries in college football, so what better way to kick off the all-SEC slate on CBS than Florida and Tennessee, a heated gathering that's seen its fair share of classics over the years.
No, sir.
These two iconic college football programs played each other off and on for the better part of the 20th century, then finally began playing annually in 1990. And in a decade that saw both teams win national titles, what became known as the third Saturday in September almost always featured two top 10 programs in a battle with championship ramifications. More recently, though, this matchup has been anything but a rivalry in the true sense of the word. The Gators own a whopping 16-1 record over the Vols since 2005, which includes a win streak that improbably reached 11 back in 2015.
He's going to score! He's going to score!
The Vols finally put an end to that misery in 2016 on Rocky Top, but then once again the Gators began a new streak of wins in even more heartbreaking fashion just 1 year later.
It's gone! It's a touchdown!
But the past is just that. High up in the Tennessee hills resides an undefeated group of volunteers that not only seek blood from the Gators, but respect from the college football world. And with one ranked win already under their belt, the Vols look primed to end Florida's 5-game winning streak in the series and perhaps enter the college football playoff conversation. But the Gators have different plans. Billy Napier, who is getting his first taste of this rivalry, is going to need his quarterback Anthony Richardson to be at his best to outduel Tennessee quarterback Hendon Hooker and the high-flying Volunteers offense. It's the Big Orange versus the Orange and Blue, a rivalry renewed along the banks of the Tennessee River in one of college football's grandest cathedrals, and it's on CBS.
Goosebumps watching some of those highlights. It's one of the most bitter rivalries in the SEC, Florida and Tennessee. These fan bases, these players do not like each other, but for as hyped as this matchup is, you think it would be a little bit closer. The Gators have won 16 of the last 17 games in this series. The Vols' lone win coming in 2016 in Knoxville, the infamous "Can a duck pull a truck" game. I was at that game, and here's a couple of guys who also witnessed that one. Graham Hall with Swamp247.com and Patrick Brown with GoVols247.com. Guys, a checkered Neyland Stadium is no easy place to play if you're the visiting team. Patrick, how can the Vols use that home environment to their advantage?
Well, Grace, I think Tennessee has to continue to do what it's done a really good job of under Josh Heupel, and that's start fast. This was the best first quarter scoring team in the country last season. They started a little bit slow a couple weeks ago at Pittsburgh, a couple of 3-and-outs early, but for as frenzied and as excited as this stadium will be, I think Tennessee has to start fast, keep the crowd in the game, because the players may not care about losing 16 of 17 to Florida, but I'll tell you what, Tennessee's fan base remembers a lot of those losses very painfully. So if Florida gets control or gets a lead in this game, some of that excitement could turn to anxiety, and that could play against Tennessee as they try to validate a lot of the progress they've made under Heupel so far.
Yeah, Florida hasn't faced a crowd like this that has, I think, everything on the line like this Tennessee team does have. You know, Anthony Richardson went into LSU last year and mounted a comeback, so he has played in front of a hostile environment before. He's been to Florida, Georgia, and played in front of a Dogs crowd that went on to win the national championship, so they were enthusiastic and dominating that atmosphere. This is a huge test for them to see whether they can handle the 102,000 screaming fans that are going to be in Neyland Stadium on Saturday.
And Graham, a quick follow-up for you while we're on the topic of Anthony Richardson. He went on the record this week saying the coaches have told him to, quote, be careful due to the depth chart. We all know his legs are his strength. So how did Billy Napier go from saying scared money don't make money to being scared of his quarterback hurting himself?
It's a good question. Certainly he's fearful of what could happen with Richardson. If he goes down, I think that what Florida can do on offense drastically changes. The amount of play action, read option, the backup quarterbacks on the roster can't do that. And they don't have a healthy quarterback behind him right now that has played a college game right now. So that is something that they're certainly fearful of. But I am with you. I mean, I don't know how you can limit your offense and what they can do based on what might happen. And I think that if Florida's going to have a chance to keep up with the Vols, they're going to have to let Richardson run loose.
All right, some key absences in this game. Florida looking to replace linebacker Ventrell Miller. We saw what happened without him last week. USF running all over the Gators. And then Tennessee's top receiver, Cedric Tillman, is questionable. So, Patrick, you take this one first. How do these injuries change the game plan, and who do we need to see step up here?
Yeah, with Cedric Tillman, he looked like he hurt his ankle last week against Akron. Josh Heupel has been really tight-lipped on what his status might be. So certainly it'll be something to monitor going into the game. It's going to be a big question mark for Tennessee in terms of who steps up there. You know, Tillman's one of the best wide receivers in college football in the SEC. Had a big game against Pitt, 9 catches, 162 yards. He's a game-changing kind of player. So they're going to need some guys to step up around him, around some of those other wide receivers. Jalen Hyatt is off to a really good start this season for Tennessee. Had a couple of big plays last week, caught a couple of touchdowns. And then Brew McCoy is a transfer from USC. Had a couple of nice plays against Pittsburgh, caught a touchdown in that game. Tennessee's going to want to be able to generate some big plays through the air. They need to run the ball first and foremost, but they could get some opportunities to make some plays down the field, and they're going to need some of those guys, even just beyond those two, to step up and step in and make plays if Tillman can't go.
Yeah, with Ventrell Miller, I don't really think they have someone that can step up behind him so seamlessly. The inside linebacker position is one that Florida was already lacking a lot of depth heading into the season. Just 6 scholarship guys on the roster there, and Ventrell Miller was their leading tackler from 2020. Was, you know, a 6-year guy coming back that had said that this was going to be a revenge year for him. And then once again, for the second straight season, he gets injured in the second game of the year. He has hurt the foot that he had surgically repaired several years ago, and he's not expected to play against the Volunteers or in the weeks to follow. It's a huge loss for Florida, and the guys behind him who have to step up are a pair of freshmen. One promising, extremely one in Shamar James, and then Scooby Williams, but 2 guys who have lacked a lot of reps compared to Ventrell Miller. It's going to be tough to replace him, especially the communication aspect. It's going to be a huge thing to watch on Saturday.
Communication is so underrated. And another underrated aspect of this game, at least, the impact of the defensive line. It's a real test for Tennessee, as Florida's strength is in the run game. On the flip side, Brenton Cox has been an absolute star for the Gators, but Graham, sounds like he's going to need some help.
Yeah, absolutely. The 3-man rush that Florida has liked to bring, and then the role that they've used Brenton Cox in now at the jack linebacker spot sometimes has him drop into coverage, and they've been able to, you know, double team Jervon Dexter there in the middle, and that's made it so that a linebacker has had to fill a gap, and they've been taken advantage of when that has to happen, especially with Ventrell Miller out. So it is certainly something to watch, whether Florida's pass rush is able to put pressure on Hendon Hooker, stop the run, and as you guys mentioned, USF gashed this team for 305 yards on the ground last week. Look for them to try and take advantage of Florida's defense in this game, and if Florida doesn't have any answers, it could be an extremely long afternoon.
With Tennessee's defensive line, I think that's a group that really stepped up and helped them win that game at Pittsburgh. They knocked Pittsburgh had to start their 3rd-string quarterback last week because of the hits those guys took against Tennessee. So that front group is going to be important, as Florida's going to want to try to run the ball, control the clock, slow the game down. And if they're able to not only do that, get Florida in some 3rd and long situations and make Anthony Richardson beat them as a pocket passer, then that's going to bode well for Tennessee's chances in this game.
All right, it all goes down on Rocky Top this Saturday at 3:30 Eastern on CBS. Graham and Patrick, thanks for your time. And remember to check out swamp247.com and GoVols247.com for more coverage on this game.